Hey guys, what is going on today? I've got a very special episode for you guys. I did a collaboration with fellow YouTuber Mike O. We are going to talk about the current state of affairs as it relates to retail across all sports cards, the challenges that go with it, which I'm sure you've seen a lot of, probably experienced a lot of that firsthand, as well as maybe some potential remedies and implications of those solutions. Mike, you want to introduce yourself?
What's going on? Thanks for having me, Phil. Looking forward to our conversation about the state of retail, which has been a hot topic in the sports card hobby. Well, for most of 2020, so it's been a crazy year. But appreciate you having me, MikeO, here on YouTube. So been doing
Yeah.
things for a while, not only in the hobby but on YouTube, and how things have changed and accelerated into crazy fashions in the last, 8 months or so.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy how things can change so quickly. I think a year ago, everybody was complaining about hobby box prices and how distributors on that hobby side had too much leverage. And it's really changed. The pendulum is sure has swung the other way for a lot of factors. And maybe that's one of them because nobody can get their hands on hobby at affordable prices anymore. That's priced a lot of people out. So but first, let's start off with what does retail mean to you? You said like the past 8 months of your collecting has changed because of the state of retail changing. How important is retail to you today?
Well, I think retail has always just been like that option for me. It was like the first chance often to grab something like, say, a Topps update or even Series 1 flagship when it came out, because the distributors actually sometimes it obviously gets to the buildings a little bit ahead of time. And it basically just depended on when the distributor came to put the items out. Like, they're not going to hold back on a flagship product, even though the shelf date might be, let's say it's February 16th. If they're February 15th, they're just going to put it out. So it was kind of a quick way to sample products in the past, or to purchase a product that, some random whatever it is, Gypsy Queen. Maybe you just want to open a box or two for fun. That's what it was always about. And even stuff like Topps Chrome, because it was always around. It was a way to, add a little Topps Chrome, break some, kind of have fun with it, $20, not spend all that much money. But at this point, retail is really tough to find, obviously. We're well aware of. It's difficult to find. And sometimes it's the only option because there's certain products that are just so overpriced on the hobby side of things that it's really not even worth doing. I mean, their risk reward factor it's such a separation that if you can get a blaster for $20, that's really the better buy. It's just, is it worth the work that it now takes to acquire retail blaster boxes at $20? And I don't think that the upcharges on those retail products necessarily warrant breaking the product any more than maybe paying the hobby prices.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, the collector side of me, like you, it was a way to sample some product. Maybe you didn't want to buy a whole hobby box of something. So like last year, you could pick up Bowman, maybe go search for a Wander Franco without having to buy that hobby box. And those 2019 Bowman blaster boxes and pretty much all the retail configurations, they were on the shelves for at least 6 or 7 months. And then this year, those staple products like Bowman, you mentioned Topps Chrome, impossible to find. So not even Bowman Mega, just the regular Bowman retail product. Series 1 was on the shelves for a little bit, but then when the hobby started to get really hot, probably in late February, March, April, those started to get hoarded. Series 2, I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any Topps Chrome either, or Bowman. I haven't seen any Topps Update, but I haven't looked for it. I think the best retail haul, the biggest one that I got this entire year, was probably back in like January or February, where I found it was like 18 gravity feed packs of 1920 Prism basketball, and somebody had stuffed them in the wrong box in the Series 1 gravity feed box. So I'm like, oh, well, this wasn't intentional, but you're talking like $55 worth pack. So it's not like, I'm one of those guys that's taking pictures of $2,000 worth of retail. And actually, I still have those gravity feed packs because they're probably pretty hard to sell. People probably assume you weighed them, so I can't sell them individually. So I still have them. I'm trying to think of what I should do with them. But yeah, I mean, maybe like in online, like Walmart or Target. I guess it would have been Target. Topps Chrome update. I was able to find some blasters because those were available for a few months before, again, the hobby got really hot in February, March. But yeah, I haven't had much success. It's come to the point where I've really just stopped. If a few of my friends are able to stumble into a haul, I've got a bunch of them in this area, then great. I've got to pay them the upcharge though. So it's not like there's a free lunch for me involved. When's the last time you've had a big retail haul? Do you still look yourself or?
From time to time I do. I haven't looked lately. I was able to get some Mosaic football, which obviously a fairly hot product overall. But I mean, to get them, you had to know, like the vendors kind of have just the same schedule. They haven't moved it. So there's a few stores, like I know that the vendors there say it's every other Tuesday, before store opening. But you literally, if you get there a half hour before store opening, you're going to be waiting with 6 or 7 people. So it kind of just depends who those guys are. It's usually the same crew. So sometimes it's just not worth it. I've done it a few times, and you're able to get a few boxes if they got a ton of stuff in. The last time I got it, there was a substantial delivery. But when you have 7 people, I mean, you get 2 blasters and 2 mega boxes, and then that's it. Which I'm fine with. I'm happy to get it, but it's just one of those ordeals. It's not necessarily something one looks forward to doing. I mean, maybe some people thrive in it and they love it. You have people who wait 12 hours for a PlayStation 5. That's not my idea of having a great time, but retail has definitely changed. And, in the past, another reason to chase it was some of the exclusives, which I know some products still have, but it was usually so easy to find. And you mentioned Chrome Update, which I haven't heard anything. I don't know if you have, if they're even producing it this year. I haven't seen anything. But last year, that stuff, they produced much more, and it wasn't the strongest rookie class at the time or seen that way.
Right.
And I mean, you could find it if you wanted it. Eventually, you would find it, and it was readily available on Target.com. And now this year, I mean, it's Bot City, so there's very little available online.
Yeah, I think all it took was for me to see those pictures surface on social media with 5 or 6 dudes just loitering, just hanging out in the aisle, and I'm like, okay, so the return over time doesn't make sense for me. Clearly, there's an opportunity cost for me and for a lot of other people like yourself, where it's just not really worth it anymore to wait it out. And I understand there's going to be people doing it, and that's fine. And I think this hobby is, for better or for worse, it's very capitalistic. So if there's money to be had, then people are gonna take advantage of that. And a lot of the times it'll be people that didn't originate from the hobby. We've seen that with a lot of the sneaker flippers that are reselling retail, the bots, which I believe there are bots for Walmart.com, for Target.com, for probably Topps website, maybe not for Panini's website at this point, but that is another obstacle for us that we didn't really have to worry about probably a year ago. And for the people that are watching this channel know that I have a subscription product, and in that sometimes I feature retail product. So I will often, because I feel, we talked about how hobby box prices have gone up. I feel like, in order for me to provide the best value, sometimes it comes down to the retail product. I think it provides better value. It's always going to be, or generally it's going to be cheaper on a per pack basis versus hobby. But as we've seen over the years, the kind of stigma that retail sucks, like, it kind of went away. And I think that started with flagship Series 1, Series 2 update, with the short prints, with the parallels, rainbow foils, etc. And I think this year, Topps Chrome has actually been pretty solid from a retail perspective. Normally a hit or autograph driven product, but I've seen a lot of good stuff being pulled out of retail Topps Chrome. So, a lot of people would say that I'm part of the problem because I'm buying blasters off people at marked up prices. And if everybody was to stop doing that, then we wouldn't have an issue with skyrocketing, blaster prices and flippers having an audience to sell to. But I guess the way I kind of see it is I don't see all flippers as like one evil bad person. I think that it's a mix of individuals. I think there's some dealers involved that need to stay competitive, so they need product to put on their shelves. There's people that are collectors that want the product to build sets or just to have something open. And we talked about how they can't afford the hobby boxes anymore. They might not be willing to buy as much as me, but with people like me, you have other businesses or quasi businesses with breakers, group breakers that need product. Um, I mean, so, you're going to have people that are going to scoop up that product. And I don't necessarily think that flippers are all terrible people. I mean, some are clearly worse than others based on their behaviors and ethical decisions, etc. And maybe ones that aren't like rooted in the hobby that came from somewhere else, don't have the best intentions. But it's a situation that I think it was hard to avoid given the mass amount of interest that came into the hobby, the increase of prices of hobby wax, the maybe not enough product being printed during COVID, where printing presses were shut down. I think there was a rumor that like Bowman was short printed a little bit, as well as Series 2 from the baseball side of things. So I don't know. It was a problem that we were going to face no matter what, and it's something that can't be solved easily. I don't know what your thoughts are on all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's multi-layered. It always is. I mean, you said like what you said about flippers. Like someone who flips a product is not a bad person. You got to appreciate the hustle people put into it. As frustrating as it is to see someone go onto a Facebook group and post a picture of 100 Topps Chrome blaster boxes or whatever the product. I mean, you do have to put in time and effort and energy to acquire that much stuff. So obviously, and I've seen it, and there's some people out there that are just, the greed factor is so extreme that they're willing to dive in front of people or harass people. That kind of stuff isn't really acceptable. But people going out there and spending their time doing it, like they're going to get it. And, in 2020, with the type of year we've had, you really don't know what people are going through or what their finances are. So if that's a way to make some money, then, so be it. There's not really an issue with that. But the other thing with the hobby growing and going kind of bonkers this year, everything's just not going to be perfect. In a way, it's great to see the hobby that you've been involved in for a while continue to grow, get attention, go a little mainstream in terms of different celebrities mentioning it. And it starts kind of small and it just starts to grow and grow. And with that, you're going to have people coming in looking for that opportunity, and you're seeing everything being taken advantage of one way or another, whether it's Topps.com products, the retail products. Obviously, the hobby stuff is kind of hard for many people jumping into the hobby to get involved in, because those accounts are kind of, it's not easy to jump in and start getting stuff kind of direct. So they're going to go with that other stuff. And then we see it with grading too. I mean, PSA obviously has their kind of dynasty going on, but of course, BGS, SGC, even GMA is going to start getting bombarded because there's such a demand for slabs. There's just not enough people grading, not enough stuff to slab to get it out so quick. So we're seeing it across the board in the hobby, and retail's just one of those areas that's very affected. And I think we see it so much because it's something that collectors have grown just used to, being able to be like, all right, I'm going to go stop at Target to do some grocery shopping and pick up some things for the house. I'm going to grab a blaster box or two to break while I'm watching the game. And that option's just really not there right now, unless you're looking for, breaking some beat up Walking Dead or Star Wars product or something, that you may not be interested in.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly like, regardless of where I stand on this, I still acknowledge that it's an issue, and the fact that a lot of people complain about it. For a while, I was seeing complaints every day on Facebook, shaming flippers, complaining about the hobby, complaining that they couldn't find anything on the shelves, and getting really discouraged. And it's not a good thing when there's a lot of upset people in the hobby. And if collectors were to get frustrated and leave the hobby, that's also not a good thing. Regardless of whether you're a collector, a flipper, an investor, or something in between, one of those hybrids, collectors are the backbone of this hobby, and we need them to exist in this hobby. Um, like you said, it's a multi-layered problem. I mean, is Tops and Panini are part of the problem too. They control the flow of these configurations hitting their websites and stores. And I mean, if you remember Panini Chronicles Basketball, I'm not sure if you remember seeing this or if you spotted this, but I think blasters were selling for like $120 a week before release. So the fact that these distributors and dealers disguised as distributors are getting access to all this product ahead of time, I mean, Tops is one of the reasons why individuals can't get their hands on the blasters at affordable prices because of, ease. And I'm not blaming it on any one party, just saying that everybody's involved, and it's a really complicated problem to solve, I think. um, so now with the state of retailers, I'm sure you've caught on to this. I think we've discussed it a little bit offline with how it seems like it's a location specific thing where there's some Walmarts or Targets that are ditching their stock of baseball cards and replacing them with candy or toiletries or something else because, frankly, it's just not worth it to them. Um, you know, modest profit margins, revenues may be great, but modest profit margins, a lot of loitering, a lot of issues, a lot of stocking of vendors. 98% of the time, the shelves are empty. Stores have had to issue, in some cases, caps on how many people could buy, which, by the way, I was listening to an interview with, I forget who was doing the interview, but it was with a Panini rep who said that it is against corporate policy to institute caps on a store basis. And once corporate finds out about that, they get rid of that as soon as possible because you're basically limiting the amount of sales for a given product just because it's convenient to that one store. So Target and Walmart don't like that. So you're not supposed to do that. And Tops doesn't want that to happen either, and Panini clearly didn't either. Um, so what are your thoughts on this with retailers starting to get fed up?
I mean, I understand it. I think the more interesting thing will be what happens next year should our current situation kind of clear up. Because right now, I think certain retailers are used to kind of the barren shelves. It might not be up front where most retail is, which is a problem. But obviously, the toilet paper aisle, the paper towel aisle has spent the majority of 2020 fairly cleared off. Wipes, Lysol, all that kind of stuff. And I think it does depend store to store because different configurations, but it is typically not a good look to have one of your front areas of your store literally empty, just empty peg hooks and empty shelves. That's not an ideal or good look. I don't know how the contracts are constructed. Obviously, I'd assume that since these are vendor products, that space is rented out in some way, shape, or form. But I don't know if they're guaranteed a location. I'm not really completely sure. Obviously, um, well, I don't know how familiar people are with everything, but I know like your Pepsi and Coca Cola products, Frito Lay, that they're all vendor driven stuff too, even a lot of stores with bread, but those things are delivered daily, generally speaking, unlike your baseball cards, which are maybe once a week or every 2 weeks, sometimes, maybe even once a month. So that shelf space is left empty more often, which is just not a great look. So I don't know what the future holds with retail in terms of how that shelf space gets used. I mean, if it were back in a toy aisle or something, I don't think it'd be even as big of a deal. I do know there's some areas that have their stuff, at least Target wise, back with electronics because it's locked up. The only ones I've seen that is, and it's been a while, it's down in South Philadelphia, which that it's not surprising it's back there. I mean, if you watch the news lately with all the free TV giveaways in Philadelphia, that's one of the locations where it was back in electronics and locked up.
So I think we both kind of agree that some wholesale change with the retail industry as it exists now is warranted and probably looming. Now, what that is, that's unknown at this point. Um, but I think, and I've outlined a few different possible solutions. So I kind of want you to weigh in on each. But what do you think about the hobby shops and existing relationships with Tops and Panini getting that retail allocation and just getting more of the lion's share of those retail products? Do you think that's going to happen? I think, that it could be something that could happen eventually, but if it did, then it wouldn't necessarily mean cheaper retail products. It wouldn't necessarily mean $20 blasters and $12 hangers anymore, I don't think. But what are your thoughts on that?
It's certainly a possibility to eventually happen, but I don't think that'd be ideal. I mean, what we see in the hobby with hobby products right now, I mean, you have a Tops Update product this year, 2020 Tops Update, which honestly should be about a $50 hobby box, in my opinion, maybe come out at 60. And it was being pre-sold for 125 purely based on the speculation of past Tops Update products. And you've seen the price come down substantially in some areas. I haven't looked at some of the big guys lately, but last I saw they were advertising like specials, marking it down by like $10 because they've sold so many pre-orders that they don't want to be like, oh, it's $50 off now, thanks to everyone who overpaid us, months ago. But, I think you'll see a similar situation, and you already see that with people, with guys getting stuff in, and the blaster boxes, just because they're $20 at Target doesn't mean they're not selling them immediately for 40. Now, if they took over everything, you might have a Tops Fire product that comes out and those blasters might be $10 right away because they just want to dump that stuff if they're forced to perhaps buy it and they know it's going to be a little tougher to move if that product were to continue to exist. But I think you're going to see Tops Chrome just come out at $40 a blaster. So does that really help the issue at all? I don't know about that.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
it of course depends on the demand because, as you know, and some of the people new to the hobby might find this to be just a totally different world. But as of even just a couple years ago, you could get Tops Chrome. You can get full cases of the retail product for $16 to $18 a blaster. You get it below retail at one point. And of course, now that is unheard of.
right. In addition to the collectors, the flippers, and all the different types of people that are hoarding this product, I think one part that gets a little unnoticed is the investors or those who are willing to hold it maybe longer term, more than a year. They've seen the appreciation potential of 2018 Tops Chrome, 2019 Tops Chrome, the retail. And a lot of people are probably holding for those purposes too. And going back to the hobby argument, 2020 Tops Chrome, it came out this year at like 220, and that was versus 2019 Tops Chrome last year was at like 105 at the National. 2018 Tops Chrome, you could easily find the year before for like 75 to 85 for a while. And that was a stacked product too. So there's definitely the investors. Everybody's really going in on this sealed product now. And I think that now there's more investors in the hobby. A lot of people are realizing that buying sealed stuff is potentially a way to limit your downside risk versus investing in singles. But yeah, it's sad because, you have a lot of people that if, retail was to be pulled from retail stores, you have a lot of people that don't have any hobby shops close to them, and don't have that option, or, you have the casual buyer, maybe children. I know, maybe not for baseball because kids don't really watch baseball, but I had this argument with somebody or we talked about this. It was more of a debate or a conversation. Basically, I was talking to a customer at one of my shows when we used to have the physical shows before COVID, and I was saying that you need to get the kids interested in baseball before they can want to purchase the cards. So it's on MLB to market towards kids. And they said, and it was actually a very good point, that actually, no, baseball cards could be the gateway drug to get them into the sport itself. And I thought that was very interesting. And having cards available to the casual buyer, the individual that might not be necessarily out there looking for cards, that runs into that display at Walmart and Target. It would be a shame if those went away. So the second possible solution that I want to talk about is more direct offerings through Topps and Panini websites. Is that a viable solution for retail?
I don't know if you could do that completely. First of all, and I'm speaking specifically about Topps because I really don't deal with Panini directly. Buying stuff from Topps, if they were to do something like that, need to get their stuff in order first because they seem to perpetually have issues with ordering nonstop. I know they had an issue with the Montgomery Club, and I'm not even sure what's going on with that. I just happened to kind of luck into renewing mine at just the right time. I just got there, and I know people like 10 minutes later weren't able to, but I think some of that got solved. I haven't followed up on it, but I just know with their products, they've had bot problems and things selling out within 5 seconds. They would need to correct something like that, but I still, anything that takes stuff completely out of the general public will not be a great thing because you do need to continue to add people to the hobby. But direct promotion from Major League Baseball would certainly help a little bit.
That's a good point there. Yeah, I mean, direct selling through the website is good for some things, some sets, but if they were to take on retail on a much greater scale, they would need to scale up as a company, as you said, and they are obviously having some issues this year, as are most of the big hobby companies this year, the grading companies, ComC. So, I mean,
you don't ever want to have the fall from grace that ComC has had. From a collector staple, a favorite of the hobby, to like the complete villain of the hobby.
Yeah. And PSA had some pains this year. They probably scaled up 2x, and that was a pretty established company that had some more opportunity than maybe an SGC company, a little bit smaller, didn't have the infrastructure really built out completely yet for that the modern genre. And SGC claims to have scaled up 5x. They had all sorts of issues, of course. In Topps, I mean, there's a reason why Topps and Panini don't sell everything directly, because it's a huge distribution effort. Then you have the whole marketing thing, which you touched on. I mean, they would need to to really do a better job with marketing. So I agree with you. I don't think it's a viable solution completely. Solution number 3, retail is killed off entirely. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but Topps Heritage High Number this year is not going to have a retail release. I'm not sure if that has to do with COVID and it getting pushed back to December. Usually it's something that's released probably like September or October or something. But do you think that it's possible that they just kill all their retail configurations and just stick with the hobby stuff and go back to those traditional channels?
I mean, I don't know if that's an option that really makes sense because obviously we've seen this hobby as it's continued to grow. We have more and more high income individuals getting involved, and that's why you see these record sales, $10,000 vintage cards, $50,000 super fractors. You have product like Topps Dynasty. It used to be 300 a box. I think it's more like 400 now, and oftentimes you'll get a $40 card. I don't think the average collector can afford those types of items. I mean, if you do something like that, I feel like your average collector is going to be like, all right, well, I can buy a box of Topps Big League this year because it's $25 a hobby box, but can I afford, 90% of products? And the answer is probably no, or maybe they can only do one box. So I don't know that is the ideal option whatsoever. I hadn't heard about the Topps Heritage High Number until you mentioned it before the show. It makes sense if it's pushed back enough because generally speaking, retailers are going to shy away from something like a baseball product when you're clearly at that point in the winter time and it's really not, baseball season. Retailers don't really follow the hobby or the product. They don't, might not realize it's a a 12-month a year separate. I mean, baseball, football, basketball, they're all 12-month a year because you have off season. Certainly, they get more attention while they're on the field playing. But retailers are right now probably thinking, all right, basketball starting, football. That's what they're looking for, as you can even see just by like the apparel they put out. So maybe that has something to do with it, but I certainly don't know really specifically anything about it. But it's kind of disappointing to know that you can't grab those $20 blasters potentially. I'm not sure what the hobby products pre-selling for, but I'm sure it's above what it probably should be.
Yes, higher than its intrinsic value, of course. Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I think they could maybe limit the amount of retail releases, the print runs across the retail configurations, maybe, but you're not the channel through which it's sold, the retail stores isn't the only reason to have retail configurations. It is what you described, to have those smaller denominations that people can afford and sample, and the casual buyer, and to get somebody hooked on a product potentially, or hooked on the hobby, often starts from a blaster or gravity feedback. And then possible solution number 4 is other retailers such as Walgreens, Meijer, Big Lots. They take a bigger proportion of the allocation versus what they had this year, and maybe they take on a lot of what Target and Walmart had in regards to their allocation this year. Do you think that's possible?
Well, we'll see. Obviously, Target and Walmart have the lion's share and they get the exclusives and such. I think it would be a good thing. I mean, back in the day growing up, you could get, you know, baseball cards at a gas station, at a supermarket, at your pharmacy. You see that a little bit more now. Like you mentioned, Big Lots is more so they're getting older products they've been putting out. I mean, I haven't checked the Big Lots for a while, but I know people, obviously, there's the Walgreens, what is it, the yellow border Tops flagship. I've personally never seen baseball cards in Walgreens other than the, stack of 100 jump cards that they repack and sell for $6. Though I guess you could occasionally hit something big, but few and far between. But I do think if you separate things more, if you allocate things, spread things out a little bit, maybe that takes a little bit of pressure off the big box retailers, but we'll see how much. I mean, it also depends product to product. I don't know why. I wasn't even aware of this, and I was actually shocked that Bowman Chrome has a retail version this year that's Walmart exclusive. When I saw that, I was like, why? That was so surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean, if more Walgreens, and we're talking like smaller stores, or Meijer, okay, we don't have any of them up here in the Northeast, but I'm sure there's not as many Meijers as there are Walmarts or Targets nationally. In the other stores like Walgreens, Big Lots, we're talking about very small stores that all of the issues that exist today with Walmart and Target having problems with the retail configurations and whether or not their allocation makes sense, what the opportunity cost is of having the cards there versus some other product, those are going to persist across other stores as well, like Meijer. Would you want to have 7 flippers hanging out at Walgreens? Is that a good look for a Walgreens? They're probably going to be able to camouflage in a little bit better at a Walmart, I think. So I just don't think there's enough space to satisfy the type of product that needs to be printed. And I think a lot of those same issues for why Target and Walmarts are getting away from retail products would that would translate there too. So
Yeah,
I don't know if
it's
that's
hard
much.
to. There's just not as many options as there used to be back in. There were way more big box retailers, and I mean, we're in the age of online sales and
Right.
Amazon taking over the world. So you got Walmart and Target, and then, like you mentioned, the other stores are really on a different scale. They're much less locations, smaller, less amount. So I mean, it's just a complicated problem. There's no easy answer, which is why we're having
Right.
discussion and kind of just throwing things out there.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think it could be so the solution number two was more direct offerings through Tops and Panini websites. Maybe that's part of the solution, a very small part of the solution. Retail is killed entirely. Maybe, limiting the amount of print runs and products, and with retail, and putting a higher proportion of the print run towards hobby. Maybe that's a little part of the solution. And Walgreens, Meyer, Big Lots taking on a bigger allocation. I don't really seeing that being like a long-term type thing that works. But I think for me, and I think we both think that solution number one, hobby shops and existing relationships on that hobby side, getting the retail allocation, that might be the most feasible of all of these possible solutions. And we had talked about this. It's not going to lead to cheaper blasters. There's going to be some entity in the hobby that has more leverage than you that is going to take advantage of that profit potential. And unfortunately, you take it out of a flipper's hands and you give it to the hobby shop that's going to make that money, or Tops is going to make that money by, raising factory costs a little bit on the distributor end. I don't know what your thoughts are.
We've seen it with Chrome Sapphire this year. I mean, it was a $50 box. I'm pretty sure it was the exact same breakdown per amount of cards and everything. And it was $300 this year.
Yeah. It went up 6 times. Yeah.
It's insane. But I mean, the demand was there. It still sold out instantly, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, someone's
unless
going to make money. Obviously, Tops and Panini, they want their share. That's why Panini started the way they've been offering things. I mean, they kind of say, well, we're making this product. Why shouldn't we reap a portion of the benefits? Obviously, there needs to be money out there for other people. Otherwise, the demand may very likely will drop. But it's just retail. It's 2020 retail.
So I was actually toying with the idea that if Tops and Panini make a concerted effort to create configurations of retail where the underlying cards, and this is probably maybe the way it used to be, or the old perception, basically the underlying cards are so terrible in the retail configurations that no flippers will go near it. And you could even make the same sort of argument with like Series 2 and Tops Update this year. Like there's going to be a lot of flippers that are going to get burnt holding that product. And this is something that'll make all the people feel great about those, like for those that were never able to get their hands on the product, even if they wanted to pay a little bit extra for it. Anybody that had the first rights to those products, the distributors, and you talked about this a little bit earlier with the pre-order prices being super high from the big box shops, and they haven't fully adjusted yet to what that market value should be. They're sitting on so much product, they're going to take a beating, and they're going to think twice the second time. Oh, maybe I should have realized ahead of time that, Joe Adele wouldn't be in this product. And Dylan Carlson wouldn't make it, and basically nobody would make it. And, the worst case scenario was there wouldn't even be a Luis Robert rookie debut. So people are hunting for like short prints and super short prints. So maybe you see some of that help kind of stave off like those flippers from situations like this. Or back to what I said originally, Tops just creates a separate version of the product that is just catered towards collectors. And that could be okay for collectors that just want to open the product and don't care about the resale value. They don't need to flip their the singles for a profit. And they're just having fun with the experience of opening the packs. That's where it all started before this became into an investment game for a lot of people. And think of like Tops opening day this year. If they didn't put the Luis Robert short print in it, that possibility, one in 3,600 packs, whatever it ended up being, like that would have been a garbage product that would have been available for anybody to buy. And hopefully 2021 Tops opening day is like that too. I don't know if you have thoughts there.
Well, I mean, I do appreciate current retail that you can like add a Tops Chrome. If you kind of total it up, the totals between the cost of say a jumbo and the cost of the blasters at retail prices, you can do very well at the retail because you have a great chance to get some color parallels, some autographs. You won't get as many autographs, but of course you get those rookie cards, which if they potentially grade high, that is really better than most your average autograph card, really most rookie cards. base cards. So I don't know if dumbing down the product that much really, I mean, it would certainly help keep stuff on the shelf, but would it make stuff sit on the shelf too long if it just gets that same stuff? Do I really want to buy it? I don't know if that helps either.
Exactly. Yeah.
I do think things will balance out going forward, say next year, again, if we get back to normal some degree, because I think you are, like you mentioned, some of the flippers out there, when they open up their closet and realize they have 175 boxes of Topps Fire, and then they're struggling to just get that money back to get some cash flow, they'll probably think twice about filling, 2 shopping carts with Topps Fire value packs next year. But it's going to depend on a product to product basis. Obviously, a product like Panini Prism, that's never going to sit on the shelf for more than 15 seconds, because we see how expensive football side, since that's the one that's coming out in the next few weeks or so, with how expensive those hobby boxes. I mean, they make Topps Chrome look like a 5-cent product, $1,000 for a hobby, of course, retail at $20. So maybe in the future you just change the pricing. Even you have your standard Topps flagship still at $19.99, that kind of under $20 threshold, which is pretty important to retailers. It's something that someone thinks, $19.99, I'll grab that. You start going up to $24.99, sometimes people start thinking a little more. Maybe some of the Prism products, maybe some of the higher end products, maybe even a Topps Chrome, maybe you raise those suggested retail prices a little bit. I don't know. I mean, that's maybe an option, something that, not that it's not just going to continue to increase the prices potentially. I mean, and again, sometimes it depends on the rookie class as well. So we'll see. Topps update, I have a feeling you will see sit around a little bit going forward. I think there was the initial people grabbing it all, but I noticed earlier today, Target.com and I think Walmart.com as well, before our show, I jumped on both of them, and they both currently had, for $19.99, Topps update boxes available, blaster boxes. But I'm sure a lot of that now is people realizing, I got to turn my bot off, because if I order 100 boxes, I'm going to be stuck.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting stuff on the potentially changing the floors on some of those starting prices at retailers. And I kind of always wondered why they didn't do that even before this huge demand surge this year. There's just some products that just warrant $25 a blaster or $30 a blaster.
I mean, really,
like Topps Chrome, Panini Prism.
Standard sized blasters is opening day, I believe, is $9.99. It might have been $14.99 this year. That's like really everything else is $19.99 unless you get mega boxes or something. So
right.
It seemed to make sense, because clearly Prism product is a little different than Score. Certainly with Score you get more cards, but I don't know. There's definitely a wide variance.
Right. There's certainly it's a gray hierarchy, because it can change from year to year. Flagship Series 1, Series 2 versus Update is a good example of that. Any given year, whichever one, flip a coin, could be the hottest. But yeah, it's certainly a hierarchy with some of those super sought after products year over year. All right. So that is going to be it for this discussion. Hopefully you guys all had fun listening in, and it wasn't too doom and gloomy. I mean, this is an issue that doesn't have a very easy solution, and once it is solved, it might not be a solution that a lot of people are looking forward to. But it's a hot hobby, and the hobby being hot is a symptom for why we're having this issue to begin with. So any last words, Mike?
I mean, you just got to get out there and try and keep collecting, try and enjoy yourself in the hobby, because obviously it is easy to get frustrated with retail or anything else going on. But the good news is, I think if you want some Topps update, you will be able to acquire some. If you want some Score or Donruss football, I think you can get some. Basketball, I'm not so sure you'll have much luck, but hopefully things will normalize a little bit for at least those baseline products.
Right.
I guess we'll have to see where the hobby goes, because you certainly don't want the hobby to die down either. I mean, it's just not simple. Nothing this year has been simple. So why should retail baseball cards be any different.
Exactly. Yeah, the momentum for it to slow down too much too fast would not be good given the amount of cards that were printed this year. So we don't want that too. But like you said, this is a temporary time. This is a crazy year for a lot of different reasons, and maybe we won't be having the same discussion next year, and we'll have some remedies that are somewhat palatable. All right, guys, that is it for today. Thank you, Mike, for joining me. Thanks everybody for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Filmington out.